What's up, everyone? So, the Bundesliga match that has been marked down on the calendar of soccer, or as I should probably say, football enthusiasts around the world, has been this matchup between Borussia Dortmund and Bayern Munich that kicks off at 12:30 Eastern Time on Tuesday of this week. And DraftKings has a showdown for us. So in this video, I'm going to take a quick look at the teams, how they match up, and then go through a lot of the potential plays here and offer some thoughts on roster construction. All right, so to quickly peek at the odds here, Bayern Munich is the favorite by half a goal. They're minus 115, and we've got a 3.5 total. These are the two teams in the Bundesliga that have scored the most goals this season. They're also 1 and 2 in the table, as you can see here, with Bayern Munich having a 4-point lead. So this game is just going to be awesome all around. Number one, it has huge implications for the winner of the Bundesliga this year. Dortmund really needs a result here. A draw would keep them alive, but they really need 3 points here to have the potential to leapfrog Bayern Munich and win the title this year. If Bayern Munich wins this match, there's a very good chance that they finish on top of the league this year. As I said, in addition to there being a lot in the line, these are the two highest scoring teams in the Bundesliga. So it should be a really exciting match with goals certainly looking possible from both teams here. All right. In terms of plays on this slate, I first want to start with how these teams match up. I went through and projected goals, shots on goal, crosses, and chances created, and then the total DK points from those categories. Well, if you look at that, we've got a clean sweep here for Bayern Munich in terms of expected points. And I think that is quite logical. Number one, even though these are the top two teams in the Bundesliga, it's kind of Bayern Munich and then everyone else. Kind of like it was this year in the Premier League. It was Liverpool and then everybody else. So that's the situation we have here with Bayern Munich. They are the better side, both in real life and from a fantasy perspective. And I say from a fantasy perspective, not only because Bayern Munich is implied to score more goals here, but given their style of play, they tend to accumulate more peripheral fantasy points outside of goals and assists. They shoot more, they create more chances, they cross the ball more. So, with that being said, I do think that Bayern is the more attractive team to target here, especially in a cash or optimal build. Of course, this is a single game between two talented teams where anything could happen. So, of course, in GPP, especially larger field tournaments, there's plenty of merit to stacking this in favor of Dortmund. But the benefit of going with like a 4-2 Bayern stack, which could certainly be optimal here, even 5-1 I think could work. The advantage in doing that is that even if this game ends in a draw, or let's say even Dortmund wins it 2-1 or 3-2, your Bayern pieces could still end up being the better plays, just because in addition to goals, they're going to accumulate more fantasy points throughout the course of this match. So that's just kind of an overarching point that we want to keep in mind here. Another thing I want to mention, when you're going through the game logs for these players, you have to keep in mind that these are the two best teams, Dortmund arguably in that conversation, but the two best teams in the Bundesliga, and they've both been playing very well. They've both won 6 straight matches. So when you're going back and looking at the game logs for these players, even the guys who, play like in the defensive midfield and stuff like that, they're coming up with goals or assists in these matches that, they're winning 3-4-0. So their stat lines are going to be a little inflated here. You cannot expect that type of production from them in a match where, not only can both of these teams score, but they're also very, very solid defenses as well. So just keep that in mind when looking at some of these players. Look at the floor because goals and assists, although they are expected in this match, it's not going to be a situation where, one of these teams runs out and wins 4 or 5-0. Again, of course, that's within the realm of possibilities, but not what is likely here, given that the line has these teams separated by just half a goal. All right. I'm just going to start running down from the beginning of the salary list. Up top for 11K is Robert Lewandowski. He's got the highest goal scoring odds on the slate, 64%. And it's just fade this guy at your own risk. He scored in 8 of the last 10 games. He's going to take PKs for him. He shoots at an incredibly high volume. So even though you might call him quote-unquote goal dependent, his shot volume gives him a floor. And I don't think you can argue that he has the highest ceiling of any player on this slate. Just underneath him are his teammates, Muller and Gnabry, at 10-4 and 9-8, respectively. These two guys are incredibly potent attackers, too. Muller is averaging 1.04 expected goals plus expected assists per game, and Gnabry's at 1.18 himself. So both players that have a ton of upside as well. And because Bayern is expected to create more chances in this game, I think they have decent floors, not enough to pay off their salary. But the idea is if these guys do come up with a goal and or assist, they're going to even add to that more with some of their peripheral stats. Just under them is Sancho from Dortmund at 9.6K, the most expensive Dortmund player. He has not started either of the first 2 matches we've had since the COVID layoff. He was dealing with an injury, but he played about 26 minutes last match, and he is expected to come in here and start. He's definitely an option to consider. He should have at least a 50% role on set pieces for Dortmund. I think the question you have to ask yourself, though, is with Bayern having the better projections here, does the set pieces even really push Sancho over a guy like Gnabry, who has more upside in this match? And their floors might be quite similar just because Bayern should have more of the ball and more of the chances. Moving down, you could see Perisic at 9.2K start for Bayern, but that'll probably only be if Gnabry's out. Next, we have Holland, 8.4K for Dortmund. This is the highest upside player for Dortmund. He's got the second highest implied scoring odds on the slate as well, behind only Lewandowski. Holland is a guy that could leave you high and dry with 2 points, but he is also a incredibly potent attacker, just like Lewandowski. He tends to, based on recent history, step up in these big matches. So he's certainly someone to look at. Of course, more of a boom or bust option, but still a strong option in this match. Just below him is Kingsley Coman at 8K. If Coman does start for Bayern, he's not the highest upside attacker, at least compared to Lewandowski, Muller, and Gnabry, but he does have a nice floor as he is a pretty high volume crosser. So another player to certainly throw in consideration for a cash or optimal build. Just under him is Canadian Alphonso Davies at 7,800. He's listed as a midfield/forward player on the Showdown slate. But he's actually going to be playing left back for Bayern, where he normally plays left back or left wing back, that is. He's an attacking player, though. He's going to get forward a ton. He is going to be running at the right center back for Dortmund, Piszczek. He's not the quickest or most athletic guy out there. So Davies could certainly cause him a lot of trouble. So I'm not sure you want to spend that type of salary on a left fullback in this match, but I love Davies for his upside in GPP, especially given the matchup he has running at Piszczek. And this certainly could cause another player on that side of the field for Dortmund, Hakimi, to have to play a more defensive role in this match. Hakimi is at 7,400 for Dortmund. He's the right wing back. He is a high upside play himself. He's certainly capable of coming up with a goal and an assist. But I do have some concern that he might have to play a little more defense in this match and keep an eye on Davies. Just under Hakimi is Leon Goretzka at 7,200. He's had a really nice string of games coming up with goals and assists, but this is one of those guys that, don't fall in love with the game log here. He plays a more defensive midfield role centrally. So in this match against a tougher Dortmund team, I don't think he has the offensive expectation that we've seen from him in some prior matches. So just keep that in mind. All right, finally we arrive down at 7K, Joshua Kimmich, or Kimmich. This guy's going to be a near lock. He takes all of the set pieces for Bayern. He does play a deeper central midfield role, but he is more than willing to get forward and fire off shots or create chances for his teammates. And he's probably got the best floor on this entire slate in the player pool. So 7K is just really a steal for Kimmich, and I don't see how you leave him out in a cash or optimal build. Just below him at 6,800 is Rafa Guerreiro for Dortmund. He's had 3 goals in the 2 matches over the last 2 weeks. Not something we're going to expect from him every time, but he does play a wingback role and gets forward plenty involved in the attack. I mentioned that the guy in the opposite side of the field, Hakimi, could be a little bit more withdrawn while he plays or keeps an eye on Davies in defense. So what that could mean is that Rafa Guerreiro is going to get forward a little bit more and be the creator for Dortmund on the other side of the pitch. So he's certainly someone I'm going to be considering, and it's not because of those 3 goals. It's just because I think he will have a bit more of a license than Hakimi to get forward here. Julian Brandt is below him at 6K. So we could see Brandt start once again in the attacking 3. It's either going to be him or Hazard if Sancho is back. The price on Brandt at 6K, it's like their DK is just begging us to plug him in because you're getting an attacking player for 6K, which is going to be the cheapest on the slate for an attacker. But Brandt is a guy who he just disappears in some of these games. He burned a lot of people over the weekend, had only 2.5 points in an easier matchup against Wolfsburg. So I am... he's fine in GPP, right? Because at 6K, you're getting some decent equity for a goal there, but I'm probably going to avoid him in any cash or optimal build. He has taken set pieces in the past, but if Sancho's in there, at best he'd have half, at worst he'd have none. And, how many corners did Dortmund win in this match? It's really hard to say. So I'm not going to bank on that and not going to bank on Brandt. Moving down a bit, 4,800, Benjamin Brevard. This is another guy that for me is a near lock. 4,800, you're getting a right fullback for Bayern. This guy does a little bit of everything. He plays defense. He gets his interceptions, his tackles won, but he is also more than capable of getting forward and shooting and sending crosses in, creating chances. And so he's going to open up a ton of salary for you to pay up for some of these higher priced attackers in this match. So I love Brevard, and really he and Kimmich will probably be the first two guys into my optimal build this week for this match. Once we drop below Brevard, it's a bit of a wasteland. There's no, obvious plays that stand out. You're going to have a couple of the Bayern center backs, Alaba, and it could be Lucas Hernandez at 3K playing the other center back position for Bayern. So he would likely be the cheapest starter on the slate. For that reason, I think there is some merit in looking at him. He is a guy that is pretty strong on set pieces and can score a goal that way as well. So I don't hate Lucas Hernandez at 3K if he does end up starting, and because of the salary relief he does give you, I think he's fine in any type of build. And then the other players you're going to have in this sub 4K range are the central midfielders for Dortmund. It's going to be 2 of 3 of Emre Can, Dahoud, and Thomas Delaney, ranging from 3.2K to 3.8K. I'm not crazy about any of these guys, but I think the thing in common with all of them is that they should be doing enough defensive work in this match that they could give you, a 3-4 point floor from interceptions and tackles won. And each one of them is capable of, shooting a screamer from 25 yards out and getting a goal. But that's a pretty unlikely scenario. The other concern with this type of player is that these are exactly the guys that are going to be picking up a yellow card, trying to stop a Bayern counterattack. So that does hurt their floor too. So I'm looking at those guys as GPP only plays, just not reliable enough in cash. And honestly, I probably just would rather take Lucas Hernandez at 3K if he is starting for Bayern. So that covers pretty much all the plays that I'm looking at. Again, remember that this is a midweek fixture between 2 weekend games. So, there could be some rotation in here. There could be a few surprises when lineups do come out. So just watch out for that. In terms of the optimal build, just based on looking at what we see here and Bayern, having a pretty good edge in every important statistical offensive category. I think a 4-2 Bayern build is probably optimal. Maybe even 5-1. If you want to be a little bit different in large field GPPs, certainly a 3-3 or 4-2 Dortmund is one way to look. So yeah, that covers it. Should be a super fun match to watch. So you might as well throw a few lineups in, and good luck to you. And I will be back once again to break down another slate coming up on Wednesday, where we have 4 more Bundesliga matches. All right. See you next time.